Lavaca County is the county where, in Texas, where my paternal grandparents met. They had a dance in one of the little establishments very similar to those that appear in the book. And because that is sort of the family homestead, the landscape that's most important to our family, my father moved to the city, but he had 7 sisters and a brother, and all of the rest of them stayed in the country. So whenever there was a wedding or Christmas celebration, family reunion, it was always in Lavaca County. But as a city boy and somebody who grew up in Houston, Texas with 4.5 million people, I was like the stupid city boy who didn't know, who was afraid of the bull in the field, who didn't know how to get through the barbed wire. I once ran headlong and electrocuted myself on an electric cattle fence. So this sense of place in the novel comes from my need, I think, and certainly desire to reconcile myself with this place, this landscape that was so very important to my family, but a place where I always felt very much like an outsider. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take you long to know what your senses tell you about a place, and I certainly did spend a lot of time in the country, though I came from the city. But I think it feels perhaps pervasive in the novel because it is a big part of what I consider important about the kind of writing that I do, which is a perhaps slightly romantic kind of realism. I tell my students, my writing students, that if I were to give you a novel, 300, 400 page novel, and in that book, and said, read this and come back next class. And in that entire novel, there was never, for instance, a reference to the sense of smell. I believe very strongly that something about that novel wouldn't seem right, wouldn't seem quite real. You might not be able to say what was missing, but you would feel what was missing. And so in my writing, I'm always very conscious of portraying and embellishing, accentuating the first ways in which we as human beings come in contact with the world, which is through our 5 senses. The country is it's a place for which I have a kind of nostalgia. So when you're somewhere that's either a little troubling or wildly beautiful or both at the same time, I think the senses are somehow elevated. You feel the world more acutely. It's always true, isn't it?
C'est toujours vrai, ça, non?
Many of the writers I admire, American writers I admire so very much, don't write particularly strong female characters. And it's just as if in my life, I have a mother who was very comforting and very important for me, a sister who's absolutely integral in my life, a fiance who's much smarter than me and more important, I think. And so it seems strange when I read a novel by, great writers, great American writers, John Updike and Wallace Stegner sometimes, although he writes good female characters, when the female characters don't seem well-rounded. And I think maybe I'm reacting against that a little bit, that I'm trying to make sure that even in a novel where you know, the most important woman is a ghost, is dead, that she's a pervasive, tangible force in the book. When Cormac McCarthy was interviewed by Oprah Winfrey, it was a terrible interview, but there was one great moment, and she asked Cormac McCarthy, like, why don't you ever put any, like, really strong, important characters in your novels, like female characters in your novels? He said, I don't understand women. And that was it. That was the end of his answer. And I thought, well, at least he's honest. But I think I'm trying to show the kind of, even if I don't understand women necessarily, I'm trying to show the sort of pervasive feeling of influence and importance in the text.